Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Off the Couch with Dr. Sherry, yours truly. I'm so glad that you are taking the time to join in with me today, and don't worry, if you don't have the opportunity to join me from 12:30 until we're finished up today, you can always watch the replay. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dr. Sherry. I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm a writer, and most importantly is I have a message to share with you, and it's not really a message for me, it's a message for you. And a lot of the things that I learn and a lot of the topics that I consider exploring in these episodes are specifically with you in mind. So with that in mind, I want you to remember that I want to hear topic ideas from you. So please private message me, put in the comments of this episode or any other for that matter. I get the notifications frequently and check them. I'll private message you. I'd love to hear your recommendations for shows. Before we dive into the topic today, which I'm going to address two things that you need to consider if you really want to live a limitless life. We're going to talk about what that looks like and what that means. It sounds really grand and kind of ambiguous, but we're going to talk about that and two practical things that you can consider if that's the life that you desire to live. Before we dive in, I'd love for you to utilize the elements that Facebook provides to help me get this message out to more people. So use the emojis, use the like or the heart emojis. If you love something that I have to say, please share the video. You can even do that now. You can click share while we're live so that other people, friends on your timeline, will see this as well. I appreciate the support and I invite your interaction. I'm going to be checking out the comments. So I invite your interaction as we're going through this. Okay. So let's talk about living a limitless life. What does that even mean? I think that sometimes in our lives, we consider that our lives have limits, right? And people say, oh, you're supposed to dream big. You're not supposed to have any limits. You're not supposed to have any bounds, right? We're going to talk about that today. And the way that we're going to talk about that is through a story. Hey, guys, thanks so much for joining. We are going to talk about that through a story, and I'm going to share a story with you about my dog, Leia. And Leia, I learned so much from her. She's just a dog, by the way, but she's an amazing dog, and I learned so many life lessons from her. So I'm really excited to share this one with you so that you can learn from Leia as well. So Leia is a plot hound. And if you don't know what that breed is, they were bred in North Carolina to hunt wild boar and bear. Right. So she is a huntress at heart. She would love nothing more than to have her nose to the ground and her feet running through the forest and just really get lost in that limitless space of the forest. And here's the challenge. So Leia, where we live on a property that has a big pond, and she's never learned how to swim. I'm sure she could if it was a life or death matter, but we also back up to a very large forest. And on the other side of us is a pretty major throughway, a highway where people drive 60, 65 miles an hour on. So our goal, obviously, because we love Leia, is to protect her. And we currently don't have a fence. And so we keep Leia when she's outside and her little sister Luca, we keep them on tethers or leads, right? And we have to keep them on those while they're outside, and we try to get, the longest ones possible because we want them to have more of a limitless space than what we can currently provide. But we keep them on the tethers because we want to keep them safe. I don't want Leia running into the road. I don't want her looking off into the distance at this freedom and running into the forest only to get lost because she's put her nose to the ground and she's desiring after some scent, or she's engaging in that desire that she has to just be free and hunt, right? Sorry, I just knocked my computer a little bit. So we keep her safe, and we do that by keeping her on a lead. Sometimes, guys, Leia gets out without being on the lead. And I would say it happens maybe once every few months. And she is brilliant. Like she looks for an opportunity to get free, right? To live without limits. She looks for this opportunity, and I can see her sometimes looking out the window and looking at the mountains and looking at the pond and looking at the horses across the pond. And she wants to just go and be free and explore, right? And we have a desire to keep her safe. So we do provide limits for her. And it's pretty fascinating. Leia knows her limits. She knows when she's on her tether or on her lead, she can run, run really fast and play with her sister. And she knows the exact distance she can run where she has to stop and turn around before that lead yanks on her and pulls her back to reality, right? So she's learned that. Like I said again, sometimes she's got this just limitless idea of what life could be like if she wasn't tethered, and she wants to go and she wants to chase after that dream, right? So sometimes she gets out and she always comes home. That's the really great thing, thankfully. And I've become much more vigilant, by the way, about the limits that I have for Leia, only because I want her to be safe. So before I get to the point of the story with Leia, I'm going to share something with you that she did that really captures the essence of who we are in life when we're thinking about living a life with limits or without limits. But there's two things there that I want you to understand, these two elements about living a limitless life. So there's two elements to consider here. One is the far away, amazing stuff that Leia sees that she desires, that she wants. It's in her blood, like it's in her breed line, right? She wants to go hunt. She wants to do that, and it's part of her. So there's that desire, and that's legitimate, right? It's valid. And just like you, just like me, we have dreams, we have desires, we have things that we can look out into the world and see and go, oh my goodness, I really want that for myself, right? And sometimes when we're looking at that thing that we want so badly, that's outside of our bounds, that's outside of our limits, so to speak, we forget about home base, right? So the other element to consider is what my current life looks like, right? Because when we run off to chase a dream, when we run off and consider ourselves limitless, we leave something behind. There's something that's there that's been a constant with us. And it could be the source of our joy. It could be the source of our sustenance. It can be the source of a number of wonderful things. And sometimes when we're so distracted by living a limitless life, we kind of can forget about that. And we start to look ahead and we think, what else is out there? And I want to go after that. And we forget about kind of our bread and butter, right? Now, I mentioned to you earlier, Leia always comes back home, right? She knows this is where her shelter is. This is where her warmth is, where her affection is. This is where her food comes from, right? This is where her care comes from, where she gets bathed, where she has comfort. It's home. And she has a simultaneous desire to go out and be free. So those are the two elements, going out and being free and exploring an unknown, limitless world, and then living in a place of comfort and joy that sometimes we see as having a limit. So now let me share another part of the story with you with Leia. And this really reflects how we can be in our lives when we feel like there's a limit that's been imposed on us. And we're going to talk about how limits aren't a bad thing, by the way, guys. I've already alluded to that a little bit. Sometimes society tells us that limits and bounds are no good and we shouldn't have them. But actually, they're for our safety and they're for our good. So one day, I was outside with Leia, and it was during the summer, and she was on her lead, and she was laying on the patio because she loves to sunbathe, right, when it's really hot and the sun is shining. She doesn't like to play a lot. She just wants to lay there. She doesn't even want to go be free at that moment. She just wants to lay there in the sun. And so I had come back inside, and I was piddling around the house doing some things. And then I went back to check on her, and she stood up, and I said, all right, come on, let's go inside. And she walks inside, and I realized there's about a 2-foot length of lead hanging from her collar. And that's it. The lead actually broke, right? So the lead broke. Her limit broke. And here's this little, lovable, amazing dog who loves to be free and loves to run off into the forest and chase squirrels and chase rabbits. And she has no idea that she is now limitless because she's gotten so accustomed to the weight, right, of this lead hanging from her collar. She got so accustomed to that she didn't even realize she was free. And hey there, thanks for joining, Michelle. Thanks for the love. See, that's what I'm talking about, people. Use your Facebook emojis. That helps this message reach more people. Thank you, Michelle. So she didn't realize that she was now limitless, right? She still had in her mind kind of this trapped sensation of this, but she wasn't trapped. She was comfortable. She was sunbathing. She was having a good time, right? But that's what there's two sides of the coin in life. Hey, Michelle, there's two sides of that coin when we're talking about limits. Limits in our life, if we view them as tethers, as chains, they are going to weigh us down and we are going to become resentful of them. Now, think about this. This could be your family. It could be your friends. It could be your job. It could be the house that you live in. Whatever it is, if you feel trapped or limited by something in your life, you will grow to resent it and you will not appreciate what you have. Now, remember, the other side of having limits is looking out into the expanse, looking out, like I said, Leah does. She looks out into the woods, into the forest, and she just has this yearning to be there. And she does do that sometimes, right? And she lives limitless sometimes. And she comes back home because that's where safety and structure reside, right? And she needs that just like we do. So there's a couple of things for you to consider when you're thinking about living limitlessly. One, here's the first thing I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to sit and spend some time with yourself and brainstorm. Sometimes people think about living without limits, living without bounds, and thinking about dreams, right? What your dreams are for your life. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that feel like they are so limited and they're living inside this box. They've got that tether essentially around their lives, around their neck, like Leah did, and they think there's nothing else. That's the bad part of believing that there's limits, right? Is believing that there's nothing else out there to go and explore, or believing that this is your lot in life. This is your station in life. That's where you're supposed to stay, right? There is nothing wrong with dreaming. In fact, you're wired to do that. You are wired for imagination. You're wired for creativity. That's why people say, what would you do in your wildest dreams if you could do that? So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do when you're thinking about, are you living a limitless life, or are you living a life where you feel confined, right? And are you having trouble kind of finding the balance between the two? So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to brainstorm. So you guys know I write, and I actually started doing something called morning pages, and I had never heard of it before until recently. But morning pages is a time where I set the timer for about 30 minutes, and I've got one comment here. I'll get to that just in a second, John. Oh, hey, Court, thanks for joining. So morning pages is an opportunity for me to be creative and to be limitless in my mind in terms of messages that I want to share with people, or just thoughts in general that I have, because folks, I have a lot of them, let me tell you, and that's why I need this platform to be able to share them. And so I'll set the timer for 30 minutes and I'll just sit and I'll write. And it doesn't really matter how many pages I fill up, but it really gives me an opportunity to do a couple of things. One, write limitlessly. I can write about anything I want. I could write about imaginary robots or imaginary flowers that come to life and talk. I don't write about those things, but my point is that I can write about whatever, because I'm not thinking about the consequences. I'm not thinking, oh no, this has to go on a blog, or this has to go on Off the Couch with Dr. Sherry, or this has to go on my website. This is a free space for me to create, and I live limitlessly, and it's an opportunity to brainstorm. So I'm going to invite you to do that. That's the first thing I want you to do when you're discovering that balance between limits, which are good, by the way, not necessarily bad, and a limitless life. So I want you to take some time. I want you to do it today if you have some time. Set a timer for 30 minutes and just sky's the limit. What are your dreams? What are your hopes? What are your desires? What's your forest? Like Leah, she looks inside and she's on this side of the sliding glass and she looks outside and she sees this forest and the pond and the animals, and oh my goodness, I want to be out there. And oh my goodness, I love it here with you too, mommy, right? So imagine that, embrace it, write it down. This is just for you. You don't have to share it with anyone else yet, right? So that's the first step that I want you to do, is do some brainstorming and exploring for yourself of what is a life to you with and without limits. What does that look like? What are your desires? And are you tethered to something? Or better yet, do you believe that you're tethered to something and you're really not? You're really free like Leah was? She was free. She could have run off into the sunset, right? But she didn't, because she believed that she was stuck technically somewhere. So if you've got that feeling of being stuck, I want you to brainstorm about that too, because that's not good for your spirit. It's not good for your emotional well-being. It's not good for your relationship well-being, certainly. Let me get to these comments here. John says they've set up this belief system in their unconscious mind and it won't let them see past those limits. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself, John. That's right. So that's what we do in our own lives, is we really struggle to see beyond really what society says we should and shouldn't do, right? They say that there's things that we're supposed to do. You're supposed to get a job. You're supposed to have security. You're supposed to go to school. You're supposed to do all of these things. And we spend our time rearing children and putting them in this box and saying, don't explore, don't dream. Well, do that until the 4th grade, right? And then I want to crush those dreams because I need you to live in this box that we've created, right? And we don't mean to do that, but it's what society does. It's what society teaches us out of fear, right? People say you've got to have security. Well, guess what? There is no security. There is nothing guaranteed. Your job is never guaranteed. Nothing is guaranteed to you in this life, except for your joy, your ability to choose that joy. So I'm going to go back to that first thing. John, thanks so much for a great comment. I'm going to go back to that first thing. I want you to brainstorm, okay? Sky's not even the limit. Beyond the sky, brainstorm about thinking beyond the unconscious, beyond those unconscious limits that you've set for yourself. What do you desire for your life? What do you desire for the loved ones in your life, right? And just write it down and breathe it out onto paper so that it gets out of here and out of here and gets into a space that it's usable. All right, then the second thing I want you to do when you're thinking about limits and no limits, right? I want you to connect with your people, with your tribe. You know, that's different for everybody. It might be your spouse. It might be your significant other. It could be a best friend. It could be a pastor. It could be a therapist, a coach, like Mr. Court here. I want you to take what you've brainstormed, and after you've had some time to mull it over and digest it and get some thought behind, maybe this is something I need to explore. Take it to your tribe. Take it to your people. They love you. They want what's best for you. So let me take another look there at that story with Leah. So we don't have a fence around the yard right now. And that is one thing. Leah can't use her words, right? But I know that's what Leah would love. So she can run around a big, huge yard untethered. I know she would love that. And I'd love to meet that need for her. And so that's something that is in the future. We will do that. We will accomplish that. But she can't really tell me that, right? And when people are trying to bust free from limits, basically, if you believe that you're confined, you are going to start to behave recklessly in order to achieve those things that you dream about. You're not going to behave deliberately. You're going to behave recklessly. And my motto is be deliberate and look reckless, right? So be deliberate, brainstorm, connect with your tribe, talk to them, get their feedback. You know, I want to protect Leah. I don't want her to go off and get eaten by a bear or get injured on a bush or something else in the forest. I don't want her to lose her way. I want her to always be safe. And so her limits are for her benefit. And very often, folks, our limits that we see as limits, that we see as things holding us back, are actually protective. And they're graces that are granted to us to keep us grounded and to allow us to connect with people and pursue our dreams simultaneously. So you can live a life with and without limits. Hey, Tina. Hey, Jennifer. Thanks for joining. So that's the first two things. Brainstorm about what your life with and without limits looks like. 2, connect with your tribe, get their feedback, Ask them, how will this impact me? How will this impact you? I want to go back again to share with you how Leia's recklessness when she's confined can actually affect the people around you. Your recklessness can affect the people around you. So one day Leia got out, like she has in the past, and I took off running after her. And we live on a gravel road, and then the main road out by us is kind of a combination of, I don't know what the technical term is, but it's got gravel and stuff on it. Anyway, I was running at full speed. I tripped and I fell, and I got a huge black eye. I'm not kidding you. Like, it was there for like 3 weeks. So her reckless behavior actually impacted the people around her. So that's sometimes what can happen with us when we live in such an unconscious belief that we are tethered to something and there is no escape. We begin to resent those things that really are there for our protection, and we run away from them, and we can create a lot of damage and wreak a lot of havoc, right? So that's why I want you guys to be thoughtful about what a life with and without limits looks like. John says, oh, she's a sweetheart. I don't believe she'd run away. Oh, John, you have no idea, my friend. That girl, if she gets the opportunity, she bites. And she always comes back because she loves her mommy. Just thought I'd put that little plug in there for myself. So anyway, but limits are not necessarily bad. When we see limits as confining, when we see them as restrictions, that's when they become problematic for us and the people in our lives. Because really, again, limits are graces. They are gifts given to us to keep us joyful, to keep us successful, and to keep us focused in life. So the third thing, after you've brainstormed, after you've connected with your tribe and run it by your tribe, remember, your life and every decision that you make impacts the people around you. You are never untethered from impacting other people. So please do take that into consideration and connect with them and ask them, how is this going to impact my life for the better, for the worse, right? Let's talk about this and let's join forces. Then the third step, it's easy. It's, Nike says it, just do it. So take action, right? That's the third step, is to take action. If there's something that you want to do that maybe you feel like the world has told you time and time again, even then the people in your life have told you time and time again, you're never going to be successful at that. Stop trying to do that. That's not for you. You need to live in safety. You need to live in security. You need to get in this boxed mindset, this tethered mindset, right? That's not the tribe that I'm talking about. I want you to understand that when your tribe, when the people who love you express things like that to you, it's because they're afraid for you. And that's why you need to open up that dialogue with them and explain to them, yes, here are the risks. And yes, here are the benefits for me, for us, for our relationship, for our life, for my life, right? So that's, again, you must never, it's not should, you must never make decisions in isolation, because your decisions never impact you and you alone. I do want you to dream. I want you to live a limitless life with the safety and graces of limits that are provided for your protection in your life, in whatever shape or form those may come in. Let me see if I have any more comments here. Guys, thank you so much for joining. I want you to live a limitless life and reconsider those things that you see as limits in your life. Do you see them as confines, or do you see them as graces? I choose to see mine as graces, and I hope you do too. I am going to see you next week live, 12:30, right here on Dr. Sherry's page. If you haven't liked my page, would you please like it? And you can also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Sherry Speaks. And please, if you would, share this video with somebody that comes to mind, somebody that you know may be struggling on that fence of understanding being tethered to something and wanting to have those graces, those protections around themselves that they don't see as confines or tethers. Share this video with them today. And I will look forward to hearing from you in private messenger or right here in the comments. Let me know what you want to hear about next time. I'm yours. This message is for you. So I'll see you next time on Off the Couch with Dr. Sherry, where I'm shifting perspectives and speaking life. Take care, everyone.